My twin sister framed me for her college DUI, and my parents made me take the blame. They arrived at my door years later, destitute, since she had sold their home without permission. Haley, 25F, had a troubled childhood. Estranged from my twin sister Heidi, Hunter, 30, and Harold, 28, my elder brothers. I only talk to my brothers right now. I never talk to my parents. Either 56F or 60M. I didn't expect them to call again after ages. I dreamed of this day often. After so many years apart, I pondered what would happen if they started talking to me and during that initial call or encounter. Always started or ended with them apologizing for mistreating me and ruining my future. I never imagined they would hurt me more when the day came. Our parents stated they did not want 4 children. They wanted 3, planned for 3, and arranged their existence around a 3-person life. There wasn't. Heidi and I were unexpected twins. They swiftly notified everyone that one of us was an extra. The extra was me. They never said it, but they made me feel that way every day. My parents kept reminding me that I was there when I wasn't supposed there. I must always be truthful. My brothers and I are usually close. I don't know where I would be without them, as they've supported me since childhood. They kept me sane in that stupid place, and after. Discrimination started early. Heidi always picked what she wanted, and I got what she didn't when they bought us things. Heidi always trumped mine when Mom made lunch based on the kids' choices. The twins were one. Our parents seldom saw us apart. The unit meant Heidi. Always Heidi and Heidi. It hurt like hell, and by the time I was 7 or 8, my brothers understood. For some reason it affected them, and they tried to include me in numerous things. Not Haley, not Heidi, to my parents. Heidi liked the attention. She ate it all like a famished hound. She liked being noticed, and things became worse. I became even more reclusive, and mainly socialized with my brothers at home. They didn't like her since she didn't interact. She did it as if she were superior and we had to follow her orders. This isn't how siblings, especially brothers, act. Since Prince had treated her her whole life, she figured Hunter and Harold would too. She never got close because they never did. Both of us did well in school. I had similar grades, but hers dropped in high school. This may be because she was involved in extracurriculars and had a good social life. When my brothers went to college, I worked harder in school. Since they both went to out-of-state institutions, that was my only option. After that, home life was hard, so I studied and worked at a shelter. Heidi and I ran into trouble when we applied to and shortlisted colleges. Her resume was stronger than mine, therefore she stood a greater chance of getting into her dream college than I did, despite having higher grades. However, we applied and were accepted to the same institution, surprising us. I hated the idea of attending the same institution as her, and I think our parents were sad because I was admitted. They only supported Heidi, and I think my being as excellent as her and getting into the same college upset them. The finest part was getting a scholarship when she didn't. We both went to college, but our experiences differed. She instantly into party mode, which I've never liked. Things rapidly deteriorated. One night, months into college, Heidi phoned a buddy to say she made a big mistake and wanted my help. We had barely communicated 2 or 3 times since college. I asked her what happened, and she claimed she couldn't explain over the phone and suggested we meet. She seemed shaken as I entered her room. I feared and felt sad for her. I didn't think the BIH would wreck my life. She said she was partying with friends who were intoxicated or passed out. Since she was the only one in better shape, they agreed she should drive back. Intoxicated, she lost control of the car and hit a house wall. She said she was afraid when the police arrived, and asked her to come to the station the next day since she didn't want to be recorded. She said she had spoken to her parents, but they were unhappy with her, and she didn't want to talk to them. She requested fresh air and food. Perhaps I didn't notice, but she snatched mine and her wallets. What followed was unexpected treachery from my opponents. I stayed with her all night. She returned later, looking better. After returning to my room, my department head called me the next day to see me promptly. When I met him, cops were present. I thought they came for Heidi, but they came for me. They asked me why I was drinking and driving last night and advised me that the university will take disciplinary action. Wow. I told them they had my twin instead of the right girl. I had to cut the crap because they said the offender was Haley Porter and produced her. ID. Everything made obvious now. Heidi, the little bitch, contacted me because she was terrified and needed help, but she gave him my ID to the police the night before. When she returned, she suggested I drink, and I was stressed, so I did, knowing I would be tested for alcohol. Results would be good. I tried to explain and told them the truth, but they disregarded it as ridiculous. My dismissal was heartbreaking. I called Heidi but got no answer. Then I called my parents, who informed me that if I didn't assist her, her career would suffer, especially because she had taken so many loans while I had a scholarship. They told me I owed my sister this and would not have to bear it any more than she would. I was surprised they went so far to defend her. Their conduct was strange. Although I knew they loved her more, this felt cruel. The reality was numerous slaps on both cheeks in full sight. They let me pay for her crime since taking responsibility would ruin her. My case was different. I hung up and phoned Harold. He was furious. He said he'd talk to Mom and Dad, but whatever happened would be okay. I did not have to admit to driving intoxicated. He advised me to be honest and not give in to pressure and would address the rest with them. However, I was expelled from college for conduct after a week, so none of it was required. I lost contact with my parents and sister that day. Mom and Dad were waiting at home, but I had nothing to say. I wrote to the university from Hunter's house, detailing everything that happened. I knew they would stick to their decision, but I knew I had to remember what happened in case it was useful later. I stopped talking to my family. They repeatedly contacted me, but I never answered. Brothers were my rock throughout this time. I don't ask many questions, but they say they ripped Mom and Dad a new one and told their extended family and friends. They argue that this tiny mishap has separated Mom and Dad from the neighborhood. Hunter and Harold communicate little with them. Their parents always wanted to have Heidi, so we're fulfilling their goal. Hunter let me stay rent-free for months. He hired me but wouldn't let me participate. He advised me to save for college. I went to college the next year. Though it was unwarranted, what occurred to me was excellent. I finally got to study what I wanted, and even though I had to take out loans, I knew Heidi was gone, and I could live my way. Despite a year and an inexplicable expulsion on my CV, I studied what I loved and found a job I liked. I completed college 2 years ago and got a great career. Relocating with work at the opposite end of the nation was rare. Since working for 2 years, everything are going smoothly. I like my life today. Heidi and my parents occasionally try to reach me, but I ignore them. I've moved on and don't need them. They are guilty and yearning to apologize. Hunter and Harold keep me informed if I ask, but we don't talk much about family. They never tell them about me. They know better. My brothers have always obeyed my request that they not inform them what I do, where I am, or how I'm doing. Mom and Dad rang my doorbell a few days ago at 5 a.m. It took me 2 days to realize it was them, but their bravado in greeting themselves proved I wasn't dreaming. They said they had been missing me so much that they sobbed every night, so they came to visit me. They stated Hunter gave them the address. Hunter swore he didn't give them my address when I phoned him to yell at him. I threw the phone in their faces. I'm normally a great host, but I didn't want these people there, so I told them to settle it with him and tell me the truth or I'd toss them out on the street. I would still do it, but I needed to know who told them I was there. They gaslighted Hunter and me, but I knew he wouldn't. After a time, I told them I'd boot them out if they didn't confess the truth in 15 minutes. However, they brought luggage, multiple suitcases. They seemed ready to move in. Who or what gave them that idea? My only knowledge was that they weren't welcome in my house. They may go wherever, but I would never let them remain. They tried to stall and laugh again. I took their baggage one by one and put them outside after 15 minutes. When they realized I was serious, I wouldn't let them stay until they confessed. They stated they got the address from social media. They located my address by tracing my accounts with fake ones for months. So they practically stalked me. I'm not sure how someone might find my address by watching my social media, but I was too tired. Especially since it was Saturday. I assured them I'd sleep for a few more hours and they could too. However, they had to leave my house and never return. I told them they could use my sleep time to locate other accommodations or buy a flight to whichever hellhole they wanted to visit, but my kindness ended there. I walked upstairs and closed my chamber when they tried to talk. They stole from the residence despite my wishes. I wanted to sleep and throw them out. I woke up to see them unpacking. After my nap, I felt better and didn't lose my cool as quickly as I had that morning. My living room was a mess. I asked why they thought they could remain. They first said, "We missed you, and it's time to bury the past and move forward as a family," but I didn't believe them. I persisted, and my mother broke down. She broke down crying like a child. I found it odd to watch. Nothing she said made sense. I asked my father what was up, and he told me. He said they had been evicted and had nowhere to go. I looked at him surprised and asked how he was evicted. Heidi started getting into problems in college a few years ago, he said. She fell in with the wrong people and ruined her grades. She vowed to change after being dismissed from college. She got into another institution, but her lack of scholarships and criminal past barred her from getting loans. In summary, parents rented one floor of their house to a couple. They called them sketchy but trusted them since Heidi brought them in. She rented the house to them. They now control the entire home. The smell is terrible from all-day marijuana smoking on the first floor. Heidi intervenes when mom and dad criticize their loud parties since they can't behave among her friends. Mom and dad couldn't live in the house because of how they maintained it. It was a rookie error when mom and dad left Heidi to clean up after mom had a health crisis 3 months earlier due to all the cannabis they were using. They also lectured her harshly to make her realize her mistake and take responsibility. However, that little bitch ruined them. Locks had changed when they returned last week. A pot couple was on the bottom floor. Heidi didn't answer their calls, so when they called the police, they got the shock of their life. Heidi had surreptitiously sold her friends the whole house. She must have forged signatures and paperwork, yet her friends owned the house. Parents stated they couldn't help. I told them they could report Heidi and those men. Forging such documents is a severe crime, and Heidi would face harsh penalties. They looked uncomfortable and said Heidi may be jailed if they made a complaint, so they enrolled her in treatment. While waiting, they imagined they would stay with me. I regarded them like a deer in headlights. After a few minutes, I understood their arrogance. I said that they came to me rather than hold Heidi accountable, knowing she had committed a crime. They forgot how they made me take responsibility for their criminal daughter years ago. At first, they said nothing. But when I accused them further, they encouraged me to be kind. Since my sister was a troublemaker, my parents should assist her when she wandered, not throw her to the dogs. I told them they hadn't stood with me even when I hadn't strayed, and their speech showed they wanted to be Heidi's parents, not mine. It was easy to throw them to the dogs since they weren't my relatives. I made it plain they were not welcome. They voluntarily became homeless, not because they worried. They tolerated this and were still letting her get away with something so terrible. Thus it was their fault. I told them to leave before calling the police since they were not wanted in my home. They attempted to emotionally blackmail me again, but I told them no. They had to go. They saw I wasn't breaking and didn't feel sorry for them. They left after making faces. Even toward the end, they kept urging me to rethink since they wouldn't have anywhere to go, but I told them it was their issue. It wasn't my issue. They begged in front of other youngsters. Regardless, I wouldn't help them since they were dead to me. After losing, they left, but my head has been hammering. I had no idea where they went 3 days ago. I appreciate that they haven't contacted me, but I wonder where they went. Update 1. Okay, it hasn't been long, but I have news. Hunter contacted me yesterday to say his parents had suddenly visited. I informed him and Harold when they arrived and expected them to go to Hunter's. Harold is protected since he lives far away. Hunter said they shared their sob tale up front. Now they're vilifying me, saying I kicked them out and they knew Heidi was the right choice since I'd grown up to be a bitch. Hunter whispered that Heidi was a bigger bitch for stealing their house, but they defended her, exhausting Hunter. Hunter's girlfriend, Sia, was upset that they stopped by abruptly with bags. No nonsense, Sia. She doesn't tolerate bullshit and talks plainly. She directly inquired how long they would stay. They said they'd stay. She asked again and was told a few days. They continued answering ambiguously, and she snapped. She sought a date to plan. They said they didn't have a date because they were waiting for Heidi to calm down so they could go home. Sia anticipated that. Confession. She offered to let them remain until the issue was resolved. Before she could finish, everyone rejoiced, but the essential part comes later. She caveated. My mother assured them they would respect their privacy and tidy up. She said she was fine with late-night parties, trying to depict the ideal visitor. Sia chuckled and emphasized it wasn't her point. She allowed them stay if they charged Heidi and aggressively sought regain their house. Hunter said a dagger stabbed them. Sia persisted even though they believed she was harsh and couldn't. She stated that this was their only option and that they had to decide. She promised them a roof. They must do the right thing in return. They couldn't blame their children if they protected Heidi. They declined, as expected. They said they'd rather be homeless than abandon their child, and she thanked them before evicting them. A terrible lul, yet I adore her. Hunter claims he has no clue where they are, and may attempt to contact me again, but I reassured him not to worry about me. I'd expel them if they did anything sensible. Update 2. Heidi and her friends were charged. After receiving several complaints, the RWA took action. Whatever's going on, Heidi's screwed. They're pleased to be rid of Hunter and Harold, and not talking to them. Hunter hasn't responded to Heidi's desire to reason with mom and dad. We've heard nothing from them since, and I hope it stays that way. They are curiously interwoven, and if they can't pull their heads out of their butts, it's their problem. I've built this life from scratch, and I won't let them wreck it. Not with me. Matt.